Welcome to the LL Football Roundtable, sponsored by Thaddeus Stevens College of Technology. I am John Walk, sports reporter with LNP Lancaster Online, along with colleagues Jeff Reinhart and Mr. Mike Gross. Gentlemen, we are into week 6. Finally, we're into league play. Section play kicks off this week. And with that in mind, we stopped out at Donegal. The Indians are off to a good 5-game stretch here. So we're going to talk about them off the top since Jeff was out in Mount Joy earlier this week. And then once we come back from those interviews, we'll break down the games for what is week 6. Tell us about Donegal. What's going on with the Indians, Mr. Reinhardt?
Mount Joy. Yes. Tyler and I hit up Mount Joy on Monday for Indians practice. Donegal's playing great. And I know, Mike, you saw them recently. Wing T's cranking. The Landon Bachman kids really taking control of the offense as a first-year quarterback. Their line play has been excellent. 4 wins in a row for Donegal. They lost the heartbreaker in week 1 against E-Town late. So they're an eyelash from 5-0. They're playing really well. So we chatted with a couple of key kids here so far. John Holmes out of the backfield. He's been really good, averaging 10 yards a carry. And Noah Rohr, who's been a really good two-way kid, can run between the tackles, and he's been superb at linebacker. And we talked with Coach Chad Risberg about all things 4-game winning streak and prepping for this week's opponent, Garden Spot, which will be making the trip over to Mount Joy for the Section 3 opener. Let's throw it out to those interviews.
What has impressed you most since E-Town, because that was such a stinger there at the end and the Bears win, but you've bounced back with 4 in a row. So what have you really liked about how your kids are playing here the last month?
Offensive line, definitely. And the wing tee's pretty intricate blocking schemes, and with pretty much 4 new starters up there, it takes a couple of weeks to get them all on the same page. Back when we used to have 2 scrimmages, it was a lot better going into the first game, and now with only 1 scrimmage, it's actually losing a week. The offensive line's come together real well.
We've been picking up on our offense recently. Our first game, we haven't been doing too good on offense. We didn't do too good on offense, but now we're picking up on offense. We had 450 yards or so against Anvil. We had 250 against Elko, and I think that's pretty impressive because they only let up about 100 a game. And I think we're just picking up on offense. Our defense is playing the same.
You've been through a lot of section races. You know how big these games are. It's it sets you up for October. How important is Friday, without getting all melodramatic on you? But Garden Spot's coming off a shutout win, and they have some mo. So how big is it at bottom line, get to 1-0 and move on?
Yeah, I told the kids today at the meeting, as far as I'm concerned, we're 0-0. The section plays a totally different season. We got to practice. I mean, Garden Spots, Matt coaches those kids well. They're well coached, and they're strong, and they do things well. So we know that. We just have to do our thing, and we have to prepare for them, and we got to be good in all phases of the game.
I think we got to stay disciplined. They're going to try to throw it all over the field from what I've seen on film. So I think we just got to stay disciplined and keep everything in front of us and not follow their fakes, and just stick it to them, play more physical than them like we've been playing the past few weeks. And I think that'll get us the victory. And I think they might be bigger than us, but like I said, that doesn't matter. I think we're more physical.
All right, welcome back from Mount Joy. Good to see the Indians doing well. And yeah, let's get into our breakdown of the game. Section play, league play starts. And since we were out at Donegal, I'll just start with that game. Garden Spot at Donegal. The Spartans come in 1-4 overall. Donegal, as we said, is 4-1. Garden Spot's coming off a 56-0 win over Pequot Valley, their first dub of the year last Friday. Meanwhile, Donegal's coming off that 28-14 win over Elko. On paper, just kind of looking at this one, Donegal's really well balanced. I have 4 different players accounting for 4 touchdowns last week, and for the season, they have 3 different running backs, more than 200 yards apiece. And up until last Friday, Garden Spot was last in the league in terms of run defense. So just kind of eyeballing this, it seems like it's going to be a run-heavy night for Donegal, as it is every Friday, but it seems like the Indians have the advantage there as far as controlling the game. Yeah. So I'm going to go Donegal here.
I think it's interesting that you say they're balanced, even though they run the ball all the time, which is correct. They are balanced. They do a lot of different things, and their quarterback is a very good, I think, facilitator of it. Garden Spot is better than their record, but Donegal's really rolling. I think they're a legitimately good team, and I think they're the pick here.
Random notables. This game nearly didn't happen. Garden Spot High School is closed because of coronavirus. But they are letting the kids play the game on Friday night because it's an outdoor event. So there will be a football game. It almost didn't happen, but Spartans at Indians will happen. Anxious to see what Garden Spot does at quarterback. Tristan Sadowski was hurt last week in the Pequea Valley game. Early on, like first drive, Kai Harding came in and was fine, 4 for 6, had a touchdown run, and Garden Spot had a good night there and pitched a shutout. So I'm anxious to see what they do with QB if Mr. Sadowski's back. But I'm also leaning Donegal here for the trifecta. They're playing great, and they're riding a winning streak, and this rushing attack's been awesome. Spot's going to put up some points, especially if Sadowski plays. But I'm going to go Donegal here to win 5 in a row. How about that? Indians.
Mount Joy, aptly named Mount Joy.
Joy.
And I know we talk a ton about offense, and I just thought this stat was interesting as far as Donegal goes. Their quarterback running back connection in terms of Cody Stowe and John Holmes, that duo on offense. But then on defense, Stowe and Holmes also are the top 2 tacklers on the team. So through 5 games, they've combined for 100 total tackles. That's nearly 10 tackles per game for each player.
Holmes is one of those. Yeah. Holmes is one of those two-way tough guys. He's a classic. He's a classic gritter.
John, I'm going to steal that.
All right. I thought after we're done recording.
Great stat. You out-nuggeted me there.
Friends, you do not have exclusive domain over the Nuggets, as we're seeing demonstrated.
I should mention this at the top. A lot of my stats from here on out, I borrowed from Mr. Reinhardt, just from the stuff I've had throughout the week. So it's not all just me. Let's go to what I think is probably the game of the week easily as far as week 6 goes. In section 4, Columbia 3-1 overall, going to Octorara 4-1 overall. The Braves coming off a 54-0 win over Lebanon. They got back on a winning track last Friday. Meanwhile, Columbia did not play last week because their game was bagged due to coronavirus. I don't know if you want to mention this here, but it sounds like Columbia is hurting on numbers as far as coming into Friday's game, right, Mr. Reinhardt?
Yes. Fingers crossed. Let's hope this game gets played. Columbia's back at practice, but I don't think they're going to have a full squad, quite frankly. And I know 2 weeks ago when Octorara lost to Phoenixville, I don't think the Braves had a full roster. So I don't know if this game gets played. If it does, it's a whale of a matchup here. This is for early leg up in the Section 4 race. Octorara snapped back quite nicely last week, shut out Lebanon 54-zip. Love what Weston Stoltzfus is doing to quarterback. 5 touchdown passes last week, 145 quarterback rating, number 1 in the league. He still hasn't thrown a pick. So Octorara second in the league in total offense, 415 yards a game. I'm sure they'd love a do-over with Phoenixville, and I don't know how many kids they played that night. I have Octorara circled, but again, let's see if they play.
Yeah, I think we could maybe analyze this game assuming something that is probably not the case, which is that both teams are going to be at full strength. But just for the purpose of analyzing it, let's say they are. I think Octorara is a little bit. I think Columbia is a little more high risk. They have some turnovers. They're going to throw the ball a lot. These are 2, I think, very even teams. That's the little bit of difference that I can see. So I would pick Octorara, and then that's before we even start talking about all the issues that come with it.
So I know we generally have to have our picks in by Wednesday morning, so just kind of rushing through and looking at numbers, and I've covered Columbia twice this year. I say all that to tell you this, that I circled Columbia, but after kind of reviewing it, I'm kind of leaning Octorara now, but I can't change my pick. I like the Tide's offense. Obviously, they're tops in the league in passing at 455 yards or their offense, I'm sorry, is tops in the league at 455 yards per game. However, I'm a big defense guy, and Octorara is holding opponents at 247 yards per game, which is second in the league. And I didn't know this until just kind of looking at the scoreboard of it, but Octorara scored 208 points through 5 games, which is the best among all teams in the league. So Both teams can score points, is what I'm saying. So for me, it kind of comes down to defense. I do like Octorara's defense. I have Columbia
Looking at
circled, but
looking at the numbers, there's not a whole you can't find a whole lot of fault with Octorara, except that they lost that one game that we were a little
yeah.
surprised about against outside sort of competition. They run it and throw it, and they do a pretty good job of stopping the run in the pass. They look very solid to me.
Although I will say, when you say look at when you're trying to look at faults, just kind of their schedule overall, they beat
Well,
Kennerdale.
sure.
Kennerdale's 4-1. Of the other 4 opponents that Octorara has played, they're a combined 5-18. So kudos to Octorara for beating the teams that they should. But I don't know if those numbers are reflective of kind of the competition that they faced or lack thereof. I don't know. But I like Octorara in this game, but I have Columbia circled, so this is a coin flip for me. Anyways, all right, let's go to section. Yeah, let's go to section 1. Hempfield 3-2 overall, going to McCaskey 2-3 overall. The Black Knights coming off a 27-21 win over Warwick. Meanwhile, McCaskey coming off a 35-7 loss to Conestoga Valley. Hempfield enters this, I believe, on a 2-game win streak with the narrow victories now over Exeter and Warwick. Kind of seems like they figured some things out. Quarterback Cameron Harbaugh, I believe, is the top rusher in section 1, so he might have another good night. What is that run-based offense for Hempfield? I'm going to go Black Knights.
Agreed. I like this team. I like this coach. McCaskey is at the point. I like the quarterback too. McCaskey and the defense, all of that stuff. McCaskey is at the point now where just keep fighting every week to build going forward. That's what it's about. And this is a tough spot for them. Big physical team. I like the Black Knights, who would be in districts if the season ended at this moment.
Yeah, they would. Hempfield here. They're playing really well, and a couple of really good hold them off at the wire wins the last couple of weeks. Exeter and then beating Warwick. I thought that was a really big win for those guys. Cam Harbaugh, John, you mentioned, he's been really good. He had a 200-yard rushing night last week against Warwick, and he passed for 146 and a touchdown, rushed for 3 touchdowns. He's kind of doing it all.
Yeah, he's a very good player.
Help your boy Cam a little bit. But I mean, he's really doing it all, and he's going to take a lot of hits coming up from Section 1 teams lately, Mike, as you like to say. And
That's a good point.
Keep Cam Harbaugh healthy, because if he keeps playing like he's playing, he's going to do some things, and your team's going to win, I think. So McCaskey's got to find it here quick. Didn't score an offensive touchdown last week against CB. Bucks beat him 35-7. Keep plugging.
Hempfield has played a quality schedule too.
Yeah,
they have.
They're pretty tested. Yeah, I like where they are right now.
Yeah. I'll go Hempfield here. I think they win 3 in a row and get a leg up.
All right, staying in section 1, Cedar Crest 2-2, going to Manheim Township 3-2 overall. The Falcons coming off a 13-12 loss to Elizabethtown. The Blue Streaks coming off a 48-21 win over Cocalico. Jeff, I know you covered Township last week, but I do just I'll go to Mike first, just because he's that Cedar Crest alum. Just kind of recap what has happened with the Falcons so far through what is 5 weeks and 4 games for them.
Yeah, I thought they looked very impressive the first 2 weeks, almost mistake free, no turnovers, scored a lot of points. The quarterback looked great. Since then, they've kind of driven into the ditch a little bit. Missed 1 game because of COVID, which would have been the best team they've played, the best team in our area, Governor Mifflin. So they're laboring right now. I mean, they lost 13-12 at home last week to E-Town. That was a game that if you look out over the course of their whole season, if they're going to have a good year, that was one they probably had to have. This is a tough spot for them, obviously, going on the road against a team that is, I think, a young team that's finding itself maybe even a little ahead of the curve. Maybe next year will really be featuring Township, but they're figuring it out fast.
Yeah, I was really impressed with Township on Friday over at Cocalico. 6 first half possessions. They scored on all 6.
Boom.
Yeah. Hayden Johnson in the last 2 games against Springford and Cocalico. This is great. 40 for 50. And that's pretty good. For 479 yards and 9 touchdowns. in the last 8 quarters. Tip of the cap, Anthony Ivy, who's been here forever and a day, caught his 100th career pass last week against Cocalico. It was not sexy. I think it was a 0-yard gain, maybe a yard. A little quick swing pass out there in the flat, and I don't think he got many yards. Nonetheless, it was his 100th career catch, which is a pretty cool milestone for Ivy. Township here. I almost had the Crest pick last week, 13-12. It was close.
Tough one.
Was
That
close.
was a tough one. We all knew that was a tough one.
Yeah, Crest needed that. You're right, Mike. Crest really needed that just to get the Mo back and get some better feeling about moving forward. But Township at home with a very hot quarterback and a really blistering hot offense. I'll go Streaks.
And some dude named James Franklin showed up at Manheim Township the other day.
Yeah, he did.
Huh.
For a
Interesting.
visit, for an in-school visit.
We should. I know we talk about Warwick and producing good quarterbacks as of late. And it seems like Township now is on this like 6 to 8 year run of Mark Evans being a quarterback whisperer. But then again, I know I've told him that before, and he said, "Did you see what I did at Elko?" So again, Hayden Johnson, another good quarterback under Mark Evans. Staying in section, I'll go to the Blue Streaks, by the way. Staying in section 1, Wilson 2-3 overall, going to Penn Manor 4-1 overall. Penn Manor. Oh, I don't have last week's result, but I know that they won close last week again. I'm trying to find who they play last week, Mr. Reinhardt.
Solanco. They beat Solanco.
That's right.
Solanco late with 4 minutes left.
Yeah, game-winning drive capped by the game-winning throw from Eli Warfel. I forget who caught it, but anyway, that's 2 weeks in a row that the Comets have pulled it out late, and they're now 4-1. Can you believe this? Through 5 weeks, Penn Manor is atop the Section 1 standings, just in terms of overall records. So the alma mater is doing well there. I covered Wilson last week. They lost 24-21 to a really good Manheim Central team. However, I will say of Wilson's 3 touchdowns, 1 came on a kickoff return. Another came on a short field after a Manheim Central turnover. The Wilson offense also had 4 giveaways, a bunch of penalties. 2 of its top 4 rushers weren't available, yet they still had chances to win in the end. So I think they're going to get healthy here. They're going to get some guys back as far as the running game goes. If they can kind of clean up their penalties, and if their quarterback can learn to kind of, maybe eat the ball and take some sacks as opposed to trying to force the big play there. I really like Wilson here. I think they start to kind of figure some things out as we get into section play. So I got the Bulldogs circled.
I agree, but at this point, I think everybody in Penn Manor's program has got to believe we're going to win this game, right? I mean, this is kind of an interesting spot. These teams are in coming to this from different places than they normally do, and I think it's an interesting game. But I tend to agree with John. I think Wilson is going to figure some things out.
Yeah, eventually the Bulldogs are going to flex some muscles here against somebody other than Martin Luther King out of the Philly Catholic League. Deshaun Stanley caught the pass last week, John. 4 minutes left. So Stanley and Wagstaff have had huge touchdown catches in the last 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. Good for Penn Manor. Good for those guys. It's just so great, cool to see other teams win. Not that they haven't won, but it's been a couple years. Wilson's
Not to cut in here, but I was thinking of this. I was looking at this game because in the Todd Mealy years, Penn Manor still got close, but they couldn't get over the hump against Wilson. Has Penn Manor ever beat Wilson? Do we know the last time it's happened?
You ready for the LL football stat of the week? You ready for it? Wilson is 29-0 all time. Penn Manor.
Look at that stat right at the top of your dome. Good on you. Sorry.
29-0. My
the
Mealy years, they had those 2 back-to-back great games. I think I covered the one at Millersville. Wilson won 14-7 here in a great game that was 7-7 late, and they won 21-14 over in West Lawn. And those have been the closest games in the series. If you go back and look at the scores, none of them are pretty at all.
Which I say all that to bring up the fact, I think this is Penn Manor's best chance to beat Wilson since those Mealy years. Yeah,
big time. I'm gonna pick Wilson here. They might have a little more size. They might have a deeper kind of a roster, and Jaden Jones will be back to carry the ball, which should definitely help. And John, you made a good point. For all the bad things that happened to them last week, they still could have beat Manheim late.
Yeah.
But Barons are going through a little Manheim magic run here, and they're just playing really good. But I'm gonna go Wilson here. as they open defense of their Section 1 crown.
All right, we're all going Bulldogs. Let's go to Section 2. Here's a game between a pair of teams that have an overall record of 2-3. Solanco going to Cocalico. Solanco, we just mentioned, coming off a 21-17 loss to Penn Manor. Cocalico, we just mentioned, coming off a 48-21 loss to Manheim Township. This is a game that probably has the best bet of ending the earliest among all of the Week 6 games, just because both teams love to run the ball. Jeff, I know you've seen Cocalico a ton. I know, Solanco is leading the league in rushing. So maybe it just kind of comes down to who has the better run defense, and Cocalico's defensive numbers don't look great, but their schedule's also been brutal. This game was really a coin flip for me. I picked the Mules, but I don't feel good about it.
Solanco won this game last year. Close, 2-point game. This is a trench game. This is a win the battle up front. Ryan Brubaker, show us your stuff kind of game for sure. Solanco, 1,375 rushing yards. Cocalico, 1,322 rushing yards. They're the top 2 rushing teams in the league. So, yeah. I thought it was good to see Barassa last week. He had 146 and a 70-yard touchdown run against Township on a great play. Bryson Flinton broke one off 70 yards for a touchdown against Township. So, and they're getting healthy. Coach Stroll, chatting with him before and after, he said, we're about ready to get some kids back. Vang is close to coming back. Chucky Drain played one way the other night. So, they're getting healthy. And I picked Cocalico to win Section 2, oh, by the way. So I think I better pick them here to get the 1-0 jump. But Solanco's going to be tricky. They're going to run the ball a lot. So best trench game wins. Whichever line wins the game. I'll go Eagles.
Yeah, I like Cocalico a little too. I think they have the great running back. Pretty big disparity in strength of schedule between these two teams, who are otherwise pretty comparable. And I think that negates those stopping the run numbers that Cocalico has that are not that great. This is not an easy one. I think it's a competitive game, but I like Cocalico.
All right, different in our picks there. Good to see. Staying in Section 2, Conestoga Valley 2-3 overall, going to Elizabethtown 3-2 overall. The Buckskins got on the win column last week, 35-7 win over McCaskey. E-Town won close, 13-12 over Cedar Crest. I'll give this stat to Elizabethtown Advocate sports writer Kyle Morgan. The Bears won that game last week, despite getting beaten in total yards, 318-208, and first downs, 15-12. And apparently part of the issue for E-Town on offense anyway, they just struggled in the passing game, which is kind of a surprise because the Andy Brought years, they've kind of been one of the top passing teams in the league, the Bears have. And it looks like I don't know, as far as the top winning receivers there anyway, that game-winning drive coming down to the end, Pat Gilhole and Braden Cummings kind of stepped up on a reverse pass. So they used some trickery to kind of win on the end. But credit to them. Here they are at 5 weeks in, and overall record, a winning record. And the Buckskins, perhaps they're figuring some things out. This game, again, was a coin flip because I'm not really terribly impressed by either team. I'll go with the Bears. How about you guys?
I was looking at CV's record. I was looking at CV's stuff today, stats and record and stuff. And we are so occupied with what we thought they were going to be at the beginning of the year. Mm-hmm. They lost a real close game to Penn Manor. Well, that looks like a pretty decent loss right now. It didn't in August, but it does now. They lost to Daniel Boone, right? I mean, that's a pretty good, that's a better team than maybe we thought when we were looking at that game going in. I think their resume is a little better than we've portrayed it. I like their skill position talent. This is another tough one. I agree. This is a tough call, but I'm going with CV.
Wow. This is my LL League football intriguing game of the week. This is a tough one. I have E-Town circled. Home. Their defense has been pretty good, probably a little flying under the radar defensively. Yes, they have struggled offensively last week with Cedar Crest a little bit. The passing game did not click, unlike the 2 weeks before when Rudy and Cummings were great. boy, we keep saying CB's going to win. Okay. And they won, and they beat McCaskey, and Tran had 150 and 3 touchdowns. So, you know, okay, they're going to keep going and they'll be fine. But there's something about E-Town. They're like last week I was harping on Donegal. Remember? Indians. I got to get over to Donegal. This week it's E-Town. To me, this is kind of a prove-it game for E-Town. John likes prove-it games. If they can win this and get 1-0 in the section, and kind of put their foot down and hold Tran under 100 and not let Plowden go bananas in space, I think E-Town can win. So, intriguing game of the week. I'll go Bears over Bucks. This should be a good one.
Yeah, when you talk about prove it, because since we're talking about CV, it's kind of all season, the first 4 weeks, I'm like, you know what, I like CV, and I pick them, and it doesn't work out. And then I'm like, you know what, last week, the CV's let me down. I'm not going to pick them this week, and they go out and win. But then again, knowing Jared Novak, he likes it when we pick the other team, so he's probably happy that I picked the Bears here. Not that he pays attention to any of this stuff anyway. Last game in Section 2, Warwick 2-3. Warwick 2-3 overall, going to Mannheim Central. Barons, the lone undefeated team in the LL League through 5 weeks at 5-0. They are coming off a 24-21 win at Wilson. Meanwhile, Warwick is coming off back-to-back narrow losses. What was it, week 4 against Penn Manor, and week 5 was against Tenfield, 27-21 loss to the Black Knights. I covered Mannheim Central last week, and they kind of struggled a bit to kind of get going there in the first half. Quite a few turnovers, and I don't know. I was really only one good Wilson drive on offense that I was impressed by, and then really the Central defense kind of kicked it into gear. Through 5 games, they've only given up 68 points, which is second best in the league, and it showed in the second half last week out in Berks County. Central held the Bulldogs to 23 total yards, negative yardage on the ground, 2 first downs, recovered a fumble, snagged 3 interceptions.
Wow.
And Wilson had 3 chances to go in front in the final 10 minutes of the game, and Central did not let that happen. So Mannheim Central's defense is just kind of too impressive for me here. I think Central's back to being Central, gentlemen, because I remember a few years back when, they were going to state semifinals in consecutive years and stuff like that, when midpoint of the season and Coach Hahn is not happy about how his team played despite winning. And it's kind of been that case almost every Friday, it seems like. And it was, again, that way. You go to Wilson and you win, you got to be pretty impressed by that. And Central was still kind of, grasping it. Hey, we could have done things better. All that is to say, I'll take the Barons this Friday.
Bear in mind, you're talking about those defensive numbers. Almost all that they've given up on defense was in one game.
Right.
Yeah,
and even last week against Central, it's 21 points, but one was on a kickoff return. The other was on a short field after an offensive turnover. So really it was one offensive score that I liked out of Wilson. So, you go to Wilson, you pretty much put a clamp down on their offense in Berks County. That's pretty impressive.
I covered Central when they beat Susquehanna 60-0, and despite that final score, they were not real good at the beginning of that game. They struggled for the first quarter, and I overheard Dave Hahn talking to his team after the game, and he said, "The way you guys are going to be Warwick week, chomping at the bit, that's how you have to be every week." Well, now it's Warwick week. I covered this game last year, and they got pushed around by Warwick in a way that I've never seen in my career. Mannheim Central get pushed around by anybody except maybe Berwick, way back in the day one time. I think Central is a much different animal now, especially defensively, and they will clearly remember that night a year ago at Warwick. And I like the Barons here.
If I could cut in here, Jeff, or I'm sorry, Mike. We know Mr. Hahn is buddies with James Franklin, having played with him back in the day, and I bring that up to say,
snapped the ball to James. He was the center, and James was the quarterback.
And Mr. Franklin earlier this week is not talking about revenge games with Indiana, so perhaps Coach Hahn, do they talk about that in Mannheim Central? I wonder. Anyways, go ahead, Jeff.
Numero uno in the league in defense, 166 yards against, 289 rushing yards against total. Wow. And 18 sacks. So they're fine. Intriguing stat, Warwick has won 3 in a row in this series. Central just dominated them forever.
That's an intriguing fact.
2 years ago, Warwick beat them fair and square. snapped a long streak. It was their first win over Central since 1983. And these guys play a lot, either in section or non-league because they're neighbors. And then Warwick won again last year, 37-7 it might have been.
That makes me like Central more, not less.
Yeah, there you go. And then the year before, after they snapped that streak, they met in districts, and Warwick won the district game, 31-28. Haynes hit the field goal at the Horn on a freezing night in Mannheim. And yeah, so they've won 3 in a row here. So Warwick's feeling pretty good about that, and I still love their offense a lot. Jack Reed's having a great year, 10 touchdowns, 1 pick, 1,200 yards. Christian Royer's been good. Ryan Fink's catching the ball. Cooper Eckert's catching the ball. But I'm going to go Central. Defense wins championships, John. So
I
thought I would drop that line. The Barons are just, hey, you go to Wilson and win the way they did, and it wasn't pretty. They were picked 3 times. I mean, it wasn't a clean game. I just like the Barons here. Every week I kind of say now, I'm going to ride them out another week, and I know it's Warwick, and I know the Warriors are really good, and they're probably fired up after the way they lost the last 2 weeks. But I'll go Central at home. Eldon Ritu Field.
All right, let's go to Section 3. Ephrata 3-2 overall, going to Lebanon 0-5 overall. The Mountaineers played what appears to be a pretty good Daniel Boone team to this point. Daniel Boone won last week over Ephrata 33-14. Meanwhile, Lebanon lost to Akrera 54-zip. I'll keep this quick here. After last week's loss to Daniel Boone, Ephrata coach Chris Miller said his team got punched in the mouth. I think the Mounts respond here and come back and pick up their 4th win of the year.
Couldn't agree more. Ephrata.
The stat that boggled my mind the most last week in the Boone game, Ephrata had 71 yards total.
Wow.
71 with Weidman, who had 57 of the 71 yards himself on the ground. So Boone really bottled them up. And Ephrata only had 1 offensive touchdown, but they get it back here. Lebanon is just flat, struggling. Last in the league in offense, last in the league in scoring. They've been shut out back-to-back weeks. So the Cedars' top priority this week is getting on the scoreboard. No goose eggs, but Ephrata here, even on the grass. Too much Weidman, and they'll be fired up after last week. So I'll go Ephrata.
All right, staying in Section 3, Lampeter Strasbourg 4-1 overall, going to Lancaster Catholic 3-2 overall in a game between a pair of teams with winning records. The Pioneers coming off a 42-2 win over Northern Lebanon. The Crusaders coming off a 49-14 win over Anvil Cleona. I have the Pioneers circled. Again, defense, Lampeter Strasbourg has held opponents to 61 points through 5 games. That's tops in the league. I covered Catholic a couple weeks ago, and that crooked number loss to at Columbia, just a ton of points on both sides. So I think LS puts the clamp down the Catholic offense, and I'm not entirely sure that the Catholic defense is going to be able to stop LS getting rolling here. Berkeley Wagner's kind of been on a tear under center there for the Pioneers. I'll go LS.
I agree. I think that Warwick LS game week 1 in retrospect is one of the more surprising results of the year to me. I think what LS has done since then, pretty seamless. Both sides of the ball. Pioneers.
Yeah, LS has figured it out. They used that Warwick game as a wake-up call. And they've been really good. I'm glad you mentioned Berkeley Wagner because he had a Sean McTaggart game last week. 173 passing, 122 rushing. 100 night. Not a lot of those, usually a couple every year. And Wagner got the first one this season. Maybe the second. I think Cam Harbaugh might have had one. But yeah, Wagner's figuring it out behind center. The passing game's still not, 100%. But the way they're running the ball and their defense has been edgy, and Del Grande's playing great and tackling everybody in sight. And this is kind of what we expected, All right, let LS struggle a game, take a punch in the mouth, new guys, new coach, and they have figured it out. So really like what Catholic's doing. They've been a headache to a lot of people. Tony Cruz is great.
Catholic much improved.
Oh, big time.
Yep.
Mason McClare last week rushed for 70. Had 7 catches for 120, a touchdown, a tackle for a loss, and a forced fumble. I mean, he was great. But LS is kind of a different animal. So I know it's on the road, but I'll go Pios here, LS.
All right, let's go to Section 4. Elko 1-3 overall, going to Pequea Valley 1-3 overall. The Raiders coming off a 28-14 loss to Donegal. The Braves coming off a 56-0 loss to Garden Spot. I'll give our credit to our buddy Dave Bohr on this stat, just in terms of Elko and kind of how they played the last couple weeks. In the 28-14 loss to Donegal last Friday, they were down 21-0 and fought back. They averaged 9 yards per carry in the last 3 quarters. And then the week before that, 35-32 loss to a good Conrad Weiser team. Elko fought back from the 28-6 hole. So it seems like Elko is kind of a slow starting type of team. I don't think they have trouble getting going in this one. It's at Pequea Valley. I have the Raiders circled.
Agreed. Yeah, I think Elko is going to look at this section thing as kind of a reboot.
Yep.
And they're a program, you know. They've got some really quality kids. I mean these Williams dudes, and the quarterback is a good. I think Elko's going to be better the second half of the season than they were the first.
Yeah, good point. Reboot 0-0. I think that's what Coach Miller's probably going to preach. Don't worry about it. And remember, they're a week behind. They have another non-league game sitting out there on the schedule.
That's right.
Hearing Jake Williams next week.
Okay.
Probably not this week. According to sources, Jake Williams may be ready for week 7. I hope the kid gets on the field. About injuries. Keep an eye on the quarterback spot at Pequea Valley. Peyton Temple did not play last week. John Carter started at quarterback, and unfortunately, he was ejected from the game. Sorry, John. And their third string quarterback played. So I don't know what's going on with the QB spot at Pequea Valley this week. We shall see. Stay tuned. Too much Elko here, and now they're on turf for a night, so they can flash some speed and do some stuff on the turf. So I'll go Elko here.
All right, and finally, our last game that we have yet to talk about in Week 6 in Section 4, Anvil-Cleona 1-3 going to Northern Lebanon 3-2. The Dutchmen coming off a 49-14 loss to Lancaster Catholic. Northern Lebanon coming off a 42-2 loss to Lampeter Strasbourg. But again, the Pioneers are really good. I'll credit our buddy Dave Byrne on this stat. The Dutchmen have fumbled 10 times in 4 games, losing 7 of them. In 3 of their losses, Anvil-Cleona has allowed opponents to rush for just short of 1,100 yards. This game was really a coin flip for me. I just mentioned those stats about AC, but then again, you look at Northern Lebanon, a loss like that last week by 40 points. How do you circle them? I like the Vikings after what they did in the first 4 weeks. I'll try to not look at last week's losses and read into it too much. I like Northern Lebanon, but I don't feel great about it.
I am taking Anvil here. I think this is a weird spot for Northern Lebanon. So much good going on, and then you get smacked in the mouth. And Anvil, when they're not overwhelmed on the line of scrimmage, can really run the ball. They got a lot of guys they got a lot of good skill position guys. This was to me was probably the toughest call of the week, but I'm going Anvil by a sliver.
Yeah, I'll go Dutchman as well. I think they're going to have a little bit more offense. Northern Lebanon's defense, again, has been pretty good. I know they gave up 42 to LS last week, but Wagner played great. But Schaefer and Adams and Hetrick, these kids have been pretty good. And this is a backyard scrapper rivalry kind of a game, so there'll be a lot of trench combat, war kind of a game. This should be interesting in the trenches. But I think AC is going to have a little too much offense. Harder and McGuire have each had 100-yard nights here recently. Our boy Phoenix Music had a 98-yard kick return for a touchdown last week. I think AC is going to have a little bit more so I'll go Dutchman.
Talk about interesting vocabulary names. We got Sliver from Mike. We got Trench Combat from Jeff. We have a player named Phoenix Music. What an interesting game. All right, that'll do it for Week 6. However, we are halfway through the season. This is a point in the year where we kind of start taking a peek at, okay, who's kind of jockeying for position in terms of postseason numbers. Mr. Mike Gross, I'll lead off with you. You were taking a look at the rankings and recently and kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit. Go ahead.
Yeah, I did. I thought since I put the time into it, I thought, well, let's when I started looking at it, I thought this is so goofy that it's probably too early to start thinking about it. But just running this down a little bit, we don't have anybody in Class A. In Double A, Columbia is the 2 seed. They're in good position to make districts. In 3A, Northern Lebanon and Lancaster Catholic are in decent position to make the field, with 8 making it. 4A, LS is the 2 seed, and 10 teams make it. So they're in very good shape there. Donegal is number 6, and Octorara and Cocalico have an outside shot at getting in there. In 5A, Manheim Central, this is amazing to me. Manheim Central is 5-0 with 4 wins against 6A schools, and they're ranked behind Spring Grove, which is 4-0. I mean, I expected them to be ranked behind Governor Mifflin, and it's not that important whether you're the 2 seed or the 3 seed, but yeah, they're in there. And E-Town, if the E-Town can finish it strong, has a chance. Now the weird one to me is 6A. Where Central York is number 1. Our teams in Section 1 in the LL: Hempfield 8, Penn Manor 9, Manheim Township 10, Wilson 13, and those teams mostly have to play each other yet. So if one, it's entirely possible that we're not going to have a 6A team in the district playoffs. I mean, it's not, I wouldn't say it's likely, but it's entirely possible. And for example, CD East is the 2 seed. CD East lost to Manheim Township week 1, and Manheim Township is clearly better now than they were then, right?
Yes.
Cumberland Valley is the 6th seed, ahead of all of our guys. The best 2 teams in their schedule, one of whom was Manheim Central, they lost to by a combined 56-10. This is weird, and I think it's going to unweird a little bit as we go on, but I'm not sure that it's going to unweird in a way that doesn't dump on the Lancaster Lebanon League. The way I'm looking at this, maybe I'm reading it wrong, but anyway, that's my spiel on the district playoff.
I also went through it pretty thoroughly. I had a post up the other day. I'm more intrigued by the teams that are outside of the bubble, like Mike said. Manheim Township, Wilson not in, Cocalico in 4A not in, Elko, which was in the final last year in 4A, not in. There's a long way to go, and these teams are all going to play against each other a lot. Hempfield Township, Penn Manor, Crest, Wilson, McCaskey, they're all in the top 15, and they're all going to play each other here. So, I mean, Penn Manor, Wilson play on Friday. So that's going to change immediately. So we'll get some teams in 6A.
And 6A, Dallastown and Central York still have to play each other. They're 5-1 in 6A power ratings looking at it. And I'm not terribly impressed with Dallastown's upcoming schedule outside of the Central York game. So there's a good chance they could very well stay up there. And then Mike, you talked about Spring Grove being at number 2 in 5A, and looking at their schedule, it's they could very well finish with 9 wins and be up there near the top of 5A. But
I was surprised looking at those numbers. I mean, like Central's number is not really, by the standards of those goofy decimal point numbers, they're not really that close even to Spring Grove. Right. And they have obviously the Susquehanna Township game against a 3A school that doesn't have a win right now really hurts their resume, which is kind of a strange thing. But I mean, they're 5-0 with 4 wins against 6A schools, and they're a 5A school.
I don't know if anybody in Berks County or Whippeal is watching this, but Governor Mifflin needs a game this week because Reading is closed for COVID. Yeah. Oh, by the way, Thomas Jefferson, which is loaded in 4A out in Whippeal, they're off this week. I'd love to see Mifflin play TJ. Somebody offer up your
You are the Bob Arum of high school football, Ryan. Make it happen.
Phil, Altoona, buddy, put up your site Saturday afternoon. Open the gates. You'll get a good gate. Trust me. Yeah, I'd love to see TJ play Mifflin.
Yeah,
that would be awesome. Now I don't know if that's happening behind the scenes. I have no insider sources on this. But when
Mifflin would be up for it.
Why not? Mifflin's going to get
they'd be up for it.
Yeah. They're going to get the 1 seed here. And TJ's great. Why not? I know they're 4A, but go play them. That would be awesome. Altoona, Saturday at 1 o'clock or Saturday night at 7. That would be awesome. Do it.
It's well done.
And I know coaches hate when we look ahead, but just looking ahead at next week, Class 4A power ratings, LS is number 2, Donegal is number 6. They're also the top 2 teams in Section 3, and LS goes to Donegal next Friday. So that'll be an intriguing one. And man, that Manheim Central, Governor Mifflin, if that were to happen, sorry, Dave Honey's probably smacking me up upside the head from many miles away as I say that. But anyways, yeah. All right. Cool, guys. Anything else for the good of the order? I guess I forgot to ask where you're going to be this Friday.
Well, I will be at Octorara if that game is played. I hope so. Octorara and Columbia.
In at Glen. Don't forget your at Glen Dateline. Yeah. Section 2 opener. I'm going to Ellen Route 2. Warwick at Manheim Central. Thanks for the seat derby. Catch you Friday in Manheim.
All right, and I'll be going to the alma mater for the first time this season, Wilson at Penn Manor. So to stay up to speed on everything LA League football, follow along on the scoreboard on Friday night. Check out the football page in Lancaster Online. Pick up a copy of Saturday's paper to check out all the game action. Sunday's paper, I have all the box scores, etc. For Mr. Reinhardt, Mr. Gers, I'm John Walk. Thank you guys for watching. We'll catch you next week.